We're taking a look at the currency market now with Nomvuyo Guma, Macroeconomic Strategist at Standard Bank. Thanks so much, Nomvuyo, for joining us this morning. So we had South Africa's rand managing to steady against the dollar yesterday, and that, as we saw, tentative calm return to the markets. Also, after the euro received some support after the Bernanke's address and stating that more stimulus could be on the cards. What are you looking at right now in terms of currency movement? Because things, as I say, very tentative already this morning, some pressure filtering through to the euro.
Morning, Alishia. Yes, you're right. Yesterday the rand started off on quite a weak foot. Looked on track to break through the 835 level, but that was before Chairman Bernanke then came out with those comments that really seemed to have calmed markets. He seemed to give an indication that the Fed was still prepared, even after Operation Twist, still prepared to provide further stimulus to the market as the Fed sees fit or as required. And that really seems to have brought some calm to things, and that allowed the rand to stabilize against the dollar. So this morning, also, we would be bracing ourselves for additional rand weakness. However, there's quite a bit of data coming out today. So should we see, for instance, the ADP report or data out of Europe, retail sales, surprise to the upside and significantly so, then we wouldn't be surprised to see the rand retrace possibly below the 8 rand level and then possibly as far as 7.95. But that, of course, isn't our base case scenario. It does seem like all things are stacked against the rand at this point. And so we would prepare ourselves rather for the data to disappoint and for the rand to perhaps drift towards 835 level again.
Let's hone in on those ADP employment figures out of the US that are being anticipated, because of course that culminates in the non-farm payrolls number out of the US on Friday as well, and markets paying key attention to that kind of data right now.
Oh, absolutely. The unemployment situation in the US, or employment situation, is of critical importance, of course, as the economy appears to be slowing and stuttering as far as the economic recovery is concerned. So until we see a sustained increase in the employment numbers, I think the outlook for the US economy doesn't look all that promising. So as far as today's numbers concerned, I think that an increase in the region of 70,000 has been penciled in. However, as far as this relates to the unemployment numbers, it was quite a surprise because payrolls were up quite significantly in August. The ADP report suggested that payrolls would be up quite significantly in August, but in fact the actual official numbers show that there was no change in payrolls in August. So that was a bit of a surprise for the market. So it remains to be seen how these numbers are going to be interpreted today, whether they're going to be taken to heart, because as we have seen, there can be quite a divergence between the ADP and payrolls, and then of course the official unemployment rate.
Absolutely. So while we wait for those figures to be released and also wait for some concrete and decisive action to be taken by European leaders as well, we've got this volatility and skepticism really take over the markets at this stage. Having said that, added to the global market woes, we've got the markets pricing in weaker growth for South Africa's economy as well. Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan reiterating that South Africa may be a bit too optimistic about its growth path moving forward. How does that get factored into this entire equation?
Well, certainly it isn't good news at the moment. I think it goes without saying that with the global economy slowing, South Africa couldn't hope to emerge unscathed. So in fact, at Standard Bank, we've downgraded our forecasts. I think we started the year seeing growth of 3.8% for this year. We've downgraded that quite significantly, closer to 3% and 3.1% for next year. So quite a sharp downward revision in our estimates. So it's not altogether surprising to hear the comments from the Finance Minister to the effect that South Africa's growth rates that had been penciled in at the beginning of the year might be somewhat too optimistic. However, it is of great concern because the Treasury traditionally is one of the more conservative forecasters in the market. They generally have growth projections that are far more conservative than the private sector. So to hear him say that one might have to look at those forecasts and possibly downgrade them as early as his speech that he's giving at the end of the month is obviously going to be of great concern. And of course, in a South African context, we are aiming for growth of plus 6%. So to hear that a growth rate of 4% in the current environment might be seen as too optimistic is of course quite disconcerting.